0229 hours, Sea of Japan. Latitude 38 degrees, 44 minutes north. Longitude 133 degrees, 21 minutes east. The Sea of Japan in early February is one of the most hostile operating environments on the planet. The water temperature is 4 degrees Celsius. The air temperature at sea level is -7. At altitude, where the aircraft that matter tonight are operating, it is -52 degrees Celsius, and the jet stream is pushing 140 knot winds from the northwest that turn every nautical mile of westward progress into a fuel calculation, and every eastward transit into a ground speed advantage that experienced pilots plan around. The sky is clear above 18,000 feet. Below that, a persistent overcast covers the sea surface in a uniform gray ceiling that reduces visibility to near zero and makes visual acquisition of any surface target from medium altitude essentially impossible. Radar sees through all of it. Infrared sees through most of it. The weather is irrelevant to what is about to happen, except as a detail in the tactical picture that both sides are working from. USS Gerald R. Ford, CVN-78 is operating 340 nautical miles east of the Korean Peninsula as the centerpiece of Carrier Strike Group 12, currently operating in conjunction with Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force surface units under a bilateral exercise framework that has been running for 8 days. The exercise is not merely a training event. It is a deliberate operational signal, the most modern carrier in the United States Navy operating in coordinated action with the JMSDF, 340 nautical miles from the coast of a nation whose military aviation has been probing the edges of Japanese air defense identification zones with increasing frequency and increasing aggression over the past 14 months. The message is straightforward. This sea, this airspace, these alliance commitments are not ambiguous, and the hardware assembled in this operating area is the practical expression of what those commitments mean in kinetic terms. The People's Liberation Army Air Force has been watching this exercise for 8 days. They have been watching it from satellites, from signals intelligence collection platforms operating from Chinese-controlled airspace, and from the continuous reconnaissance flights that PLAAF Maritime Patrol aircraft have conducted along the exercise boundary. Close enough to collect useful data, not close enough to trigger a formal intercept response. 8 days of observation, 8 days of processing, 8 days of building a targeting picture and a strike plan that the PLAAF's Long-Range Aviation Command believes is capable of demonstrating, in the most concrete possible terms, that Chinese air power can reach and threaten an American carrier operating in the Sea of Japan. The instrument of that demonstration is the Jian H-6K, China's primary long-range strategic bomber, a modernized derivative of the Soviet Tu-16 Badger design extensively rebuilt with new engines, new avionics, and a new internal fuel capacity that extends its unrefueled combat radius to approximately 3,500 kilometers. The H-6K is not a fifth-generation aircraft. It is not stealthy. It is a large 4-engine turbofan bomber with a radar cross-section measurable in square meters, a cruise speed of Mach 0.75, and a maximum altitude of approximately 42,000 feet. What makes it relevant as a strike platform is the weapon it carries, the CJ-20 Air-Launched Land Attack and Anti-Ship Cruise Missile, a weapon with a claimed range of 2,000 kilometers, GPS/INS mid-course navigation, and an active radar terminal seeker. 6 H-6Ks, each carrying 2 CJ-20 missiles under their wings, have departed Liang Air Base in Shandong Province and are currently flying in eastward transit over international airspace above the Sea of Japan at 38,000 feet, closing toward the release line that will put their missiles within engagement range of USS Gerald R. Ford. 12 CJ-20 cruise missiles, released from a standoff range that keeps the H-6Ks themselves well outside the strike group's immediate air defense perimeter. The CJ-20's range is the entire point, allowing the bombers to release and turn for home before any American interceptor can reach them. The PLAAF planners have calculated that the release line puts the H-6K 340 nautical miles from USS Gerald R forward. Beyond the engagement range of the F/A-18Fs that represent the carrier air wing's conventional long-range intercept capability, and far enough from the surface group's SM-6 engagement envelope that the bombers themselves are not at direct risk during the weapon release phase. The calculation contains two errors. The first error is the release line distance. The second error is the assumption about what the carrier air wing is carrying tonight. USS Gerald R. Ford is the only carrier in the United States Navy currently embarked with an operational F-35C Lightning II squadron. Strike Fighter Squadron 147 flying the Block 3F variant of the carrier-based 5th-generation fighter. The F-35C does not appear on the publicly available order of battle documents that Chinese open-source intelligence analysts have been working from. It does not appear on the exercise manifests that were published for coordination with Japanese maritime authorities. The F-35C was added to the Ford's air wing for this deployment on a classified tasking order that was not reflected in any document accessible to PLAAF collection systems. The PLAAF strike planners built their release line calculation around the F/A-18F's combat radius plus AIM-120D range AMRAAMs, a number that is itself classified but estimable from published performance data. They did not build it around the F-35C's combat radius because they did not know the F-35C was here. It is here. Two F-35Cs from VFA 147 have been airborne since 0141 hours on a classified extended-range combat air patrol tasking, operating at 42,000 feet above the H-6K formation's cruise altitude, 220 nautical miles northeast of the carrier. They are in Link 16 communication with the E-2D Advanced Hawkeye orbiting 150 nautical miles further east, which has been tracking the H-6K formation since it departed Liang Air Base 4 hours and 17 minutes ago. The H-6K's radar cross-sections, multiple square meters at altitude on a steady cruise track, are as clear on the APS-145 radar as a formation of airliners. The E-2D crew has been providing the two F-35Cs with continuous formation track data for the past 2 hours and 11 minutes. The F-35Cs know exactly where the H-6Ks are, exactly how fast they are traveling, and exactly when they will reach their planned CJ-20 release line. The H-6K crews do not know the F-35Cs exist. The F-35C's AN/APG-81 AESA radar is operating in its lowest probability of intercept mode, a waveform so carefully managed that the H-6K's radar warning receivers, running through their frequency scan cycles, register nothing that classifies as a threat. The F-35C's radar cross-section in its most threatening aspect is approximately 0.001 square meters, comparable to a large bird invisible in the radar environment of a busy airspace to any sensor not specifically calibrated against it. The H-6K crews are flying their mission with complete confidence that no intercept threat exists within their release line geometry. They are focused on their navigation, their weapon systems checklists, their communication protocols with the ground control station in Shandong. They are not expecting what is already 68 nautical miles behind them and closing at Mach 1.4 in supercruise. At 0229 hours and 08 seconds, the lead F-35C pilot completes his targeting sequence. The AN/APG-81 has all 6 H-6K contacts in track. The formation is flying in 2 3-ship elements with 8 nautical mile spacing between elements, a standard combat spread that gives the formation mutual support geometry against conventional interceptors. Against 2 F-35Cs attacking from the 6 o'clock high position with AIM-120D AMRAAMs on pre-computed solutions, the formation geometry provides no meaningful support at all, because the H-6Ks do not know they are under attack until the AIM-120D seekers go active, at which point the engagement is already in its terminal phase. The AIM-120D is fired at 0229 hours and 14 seconds. 2 missiles from the lead F-35C targeting the lead H-6K and its wingman simultaneously. 4 seconds later, the second F-35C fires 2 more AIM-120Ds targeting the second element's lead aircraft and wingman. All 4 missiles are in the air within 7 seconds, climbing slightly to optimize their intercept trajectories against targets 68 nautical miles ahead at the same altitude. The H-6K formation's radar warning receivers register the AIM-120D seekers at 02:31 hours and 02 seconds, when the missiles are 9 nautical miles from their targets in their terminal homing phase. The warning tones reach the H-6K crews simultaneously across the formation. The response is immediate and professionally executed. Chaff dispensed in standard program sequences, a brake turn away from the primary threat bearing, throttles advanced to maximum power. The H-6K's maximum speed at altitude is Mach 0.95. At 9 nautical miles range with the AIM-120D closing at combined velocities that close the remaining distance in under 40 seconds, there is no turn tight enough and no acceleration fast enough to change the outcome. Lead H-6K, rendered inoperable at 02:31 hours and 41 seconds. Altitude 38,200 feet. The AIM-120D's continuous rod warhead detonates within lethal fragmentation radius of the bomber's port engine cluster. The aircraft's structural integrity fails. The 2 CJ-20 missiles still mounted under its wings descend with the wreckage, unfired. Their guidance systems never activated, their warheads never armed. H-6K wingman rendered inoperable at 02:31 hours and 48 seconds. 7 seconds between intercepts. The second element has had 11 additional seconds of warning, long enough to complete 1 defensive maneuver cycle and deploy a second chaff bundle. Not long enough. The third and fourth H-6Ks are rendered inoperable at 02:32 hours and 03 seconds and 02:32 hours and 11 seconds respectively. The formation's cohesion has been completely disrupted. 4 aircraft rendered inoperable in 30 seconds. The 2 remaining H-6Ks, the trailing element, have observed the engagement on their radar warning receivers and have received the emergency channel transmissions from the lead element crews in the seconds before their aircraft were rendered inoperable. Both aircraft brake hard, jettisoning their CJ-20 missiles in safe mode, unarmed, unfused, programmed to self-destruct rather than guide to any target, and accelerating to maximum speed on a direct westward heading toward the Chinese coastline. The jettisoned missiles will not threaten USS Gerald R forward. They are inert ballistic objects falling toward the Sea of Japan, their guidance systems powered off, their seekers never activated. The 2 fleeing H-6Ks are now at maximum power on a direct course for home. Their fuel state, combined with the distance to the Chinese coast and the headwind component on the westward track, is becoming a critical planning factor. They are 680 nautical miles from Liang Air Base. The H-6K's combat radius, depending on the flight profile and fuel state, is adequate to return if flown efficiently. There will not be a second pass. There will not be a second attempt tonight. The 2 surviving crews are going home with empty pylons and a first-hand account of an engagement that lasted 30 seconds and eliminated 4 heavy bombers before any of them could release a weapon. The second F-35C has repositioned during the engagement and is now in a tail chase geometry on the westbound H-6Ks at 52 nautical miles range. The engagement decision moves through the tactical network to the strike group commanding officer in under 90 seconds. The H-6Ks are withdrawing. Their weapons have been jettisoned. The immediate threat has been eliminated. The rules of engagement applicable to this engagement, carefully defined by theater legal authorities to address exactly this scenario, provide for continued engagement of withdrawing forces that represent a continuing threat. 2 H-6Ks with empty pylons withdrawing at maximum speed toward Chinese airspace do not meet that standard. The engagement is terminated. The 2 surviving bombers continue their withdrawal unmolested. This decision will be analyzed extensively in the after-action reviews at every command level from the strike group up through Pacific Air Forces and Indo-Pacific Command. It is the correct decision. Pursuing two empty, withdrawing bombers into proximity with Chinese airspace creates escalation risks that outweigh any tactical benefit from their elimination. The message has already been delivered by the four rendered inoperable aircraft descending through 38,000 feet over the international waters of the Sea of Japan. The message is not ambiguous. Now the defensive problem. Because 12 CJ-20 missiles were loaded on 6 H-6Ks when the formation departed Liang. 4 aircraft were rendered inoperable with their missiles still attached. Those 8 CJ-20S are descending with the wreckage, inert and unguided. 2 aircraft jettisoned their missiles in safe mode. 4 more CJ-20S in the water unfired. But the mission planning assumes 6 H-6Ks releasing 12 missiles. The actual weapon release count is 0. Not one CJ-20 was launched in a guided mode. Not one seeker was activated against USS Gerald R forward. Not one missile flew a targeting approach toward any American vessel. The E-2D Hawkeye confirms the all-clear at 02:34 hours and 11 seconds. No airborne contacts on threat tracks within the strike group's defensive perimeter. No missile launches detected from any bearing. USS Gerald R forward has not changed her heading. The 2 F-35Cs are on their recovery bearing. Fuel states comfortable, both aircraft fully functional. The carrier's flight deck is preparing the 0300 hours recovery cycle for the aircraft already airborne. The strike group continues its bilateral exercise with the JMSDF as if the engagement was a scheduled event, which, from the perspective of the crews who planned and executed it, it essentially was. In Beijing, the People's Liberation Army Air Force Command will receive the loss notification through military reporting channels over the next several hours. 4 H-6K strategic bombers rendered inoperable over the Sea of Japan. 16 CJ-20 cruise missiles, 4 aircraft worth, on the bottom of the Sea of Japan without being employed. 2 surviving crews returning to Liang with empty pylons and incident reports that will require extensive classified review. The PLAAF long-range aviation community will need to account for a fundamental intelligence failure. The F-35C deployment aboard USS Gerald R. Forward was not detected in their pre-mission collection, and the release line calculation that was supposed to keep the H-6Ks outside American intercept range was built on an assumption no F-35C present. That was wrong. The strategic damage from this engagement extends beyond the 4 aircraft. The H-6K/CJ-20 combination has been the centerpiece of China's conventional long-range strike deterrent concept for the Western Pacific. The system was designed to hold American carrier strike groups at risk from standoff ranges that conventional carrier air wings cannot cover. The concept depends on the release line being outside the effective intercept range of the defense. Tonight, the F-35C's combination of stealth and the AIM-120D's beyond visual range engagement envelope extended that effective intercept range by approximately 140 nautical miles beyond what the PLAAF's planning assumed. The release line that was supposed to be safe was not safe. It was inside the engagement envelope of an aircraft the PLAAF did not know was there. The F-35C's stealth is the decisive factor in this analysis. An F/A-18F approaching the H-6K formation from the same geometry would have been detected by the bomber's radar warning receivers at ranges exceeding 50 nautical miles. Enough time for the H-6Ks to release their CJ-20ES before an intercept could be completed, and enough time for the bombers to position themselves in a more defensible geometry. The F-35C's low observable signature denied the H-6K crews that detection and response window. They were engaged from within their formation's defensive geometry by an aircraft they could not track, firing missiles they could not detect until the weapons were seconds from impact. The asymmetry of information in that engagement, the F-35C knowing everything, the H-6Ks knowing nothing until the last 40 seconds, is the operational expression of why 5th-generation stealth was developed and what it provides in exactly this scenario. The PLAAF will adapt. They will study this engagement, identify the intelligence gap that produced the F-35C surprise, and modify their release line calculations accordingly. They will develop tactics that attempt to address the extended intercept range that fifth-generation fighters provide. This is the normal cycle of military competition. Each side adapts to what the other demonstrates. The adaptation will take time. It will require resources. And when it produces a new tactical approach, the United States will have been watching that approach develop, collecting intelligence on it, and preparing a response. USS Gerald R. Ford completes her night recovery cycle at 0318 hours. The two F-35Cs from VFA 147 are among the aircraft recovered. Their pilots debrief in the classified spaces below the carrier's island structure. The engagement data, the F-35C radar tracks, the AIM-120D terminal performance data, the H-6K radar warning receiver response timing, will be processed and distributed to the appropriate intelligence and operational analysis centers. Every detail of what the H-6Ks did in their final 40 seconds will inform the targeting algorithms and tactical procedures for every future engagement of this type. The Sea of Japan is cold and dark and entirely controlled by the combined naval and air power of the United States and its treaty allies. The H-6K formation that departed Liang 4 hours ago with 12 cruise missiles intended to demonstrate Chinese reach and capability will not be returning with the demonstration it intended. 4 of its aircraft are wreckage on the floor of the Sea of Japan. 2 are running home empty. The carrier they were supposed to threaten is conducting flight operations on schedule, her crew eating breakfast, her reactors at full power, her flight deck preparing for the morning's first launch cycle. China sent its best long-range bombers into international airspace to threaten USS Gerald R. Ford. The Ford sent 2 aircraft that China didn't know existed, and the problem solved itself in 30 seconds. Bye for now.